Hello and namaste. So, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this practice of who am I, or sorry, what am I? And you've done this practice already once today, possibly twice, but once, depending on how you're following the sequence. And I wanted to talk more about it to kind of give you more of an understanding of where this question is coming from and possible pitfalls that you might have in asking this question. And it's actually a very beautiful practice, and it's a practice that we have in non-dual tantra, but it's also a practice that they do quite a bit in Advaita Vedanta as well. So it's really a crossing over at this point of these two paths. And the great Ramana Maharishi, who was one of the greatest saints of the last century, kind of revived it in the Advaita Vedanta tradition. And so I'd like to share this with you. But first, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Sri Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, or it should be pronounced Sri Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And this teaching actually comes from this book, along with many other teachings that we're sharing with you on this Shiva retreat. It comes from this book, and it's an amazing book. Definitely one of its kind. It's an old text which comes from the path of Kashmir Shaivism. And it has written within it 112 different styles and different forms of meditation. And the importance of this is that it shows us that we don't need to necessarily be limited to only one practice. Now, for some people, I understand as well, and myself included for a long time, that one practice was really important to ground myself and to go deeply into one practice. But after a while, after we actually get a taste of what the practices are bringing us, the space of consciousness and the space of awareness that the practice is bringing us, then we can start to expand and look at other practices which help us in this unfolding process of the awareness of Shiva on our spiritual journey. So it's really, there's practices in here of where you lie down, there's practices where you are walking, practices while looking at the sunset, practices while in some kind of a vehicle. Of course, back then they didn't have cars or trucks or something, but they had like horse carts and this sort of thing. And so there's practices about this. And some of the translations, I'll say, some of them are quite cryptic because they're very scholarly translations and they just give you what the translation is. Whereas other ones, like this one from the Bihar School of Yoga, it gives actually the commentary of Satyananda Saraswati, who was a great master. I say was because he has recently left his body. But he was a great master, and he brought to light many of the different teachings of India. And so this book, the Sri Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, is a great gem. And there's many, many different translations, and some of them are less scholarly than others. The nice thing about the Bihar School of Yoga is it's mainly a school concerning yoga. So in that context, they have a lot of the knowledge of the chakras and things like this. If you get some of the other versions, they're just kind of poetical versions of it. And it can be good, but it might not encapsulate the full tradition of, because the Kashmir Shaivist tradition was tantric, and they were basing a lot of the teachings actually off of yoga, off of the understandings that come from yoga, like the understandings of the different vayus, apana vayu, prana vayu, samana vayu, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of understandings that yoga brings to us, which was assimilated into that tantric tradition. So the poetic ones are good for those of us who might not know a lot about that, the yogic tradition, and we can enter into these things in more an intuitive manner. But it's also helpful with the technicalities of things if we want to pinpoint exactly what is happening. So I hope that's clear anyway. So this method of what am I, this practice comes from this this book in verse 97, actually. And it's one of the many ways. So when we're sitting in meditation, when we're going to do this practice, as you'll see from the practices that we give, it's really good in the beginning to for the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes even half an hour, sometimes the entire duration of the meditation, we give first to like a preliminary, an introduction. The same way you might write an introductory paragraph to an essay, or you write an introduction to a book. In the same way, we have this introductory aspect in the meditation. Of course, coming into a comfortable position and perhaps asking for guidance from some beings that might help us, like our teachers, and asking for this. But and so those things are there, but I would say even more importantly, actually coming into a practice, kind of a preliminary practice. We call them concentration practices in yoga, where we enter into this practice in order to bring about a state of mental calmness. So the mental calmness helps a lot in us being able to deepen into truth, because when the body is relaxed and when the mind is calm, we more easily see, we're more easily able to witness the thoughts, able to witness what's happening in the body, more able to witness the different energies in the body and the prana. And more than that, we're able to witness the witnessing of those things. So we start off with our practice with some kind of calming exercise, some kind of concentration practice. Why not an alternate nostril breathing practice, deepening our breath until we feel this state of inner calmness coming over us. And sometimes it's important as well in our meditation that we don't have too many expectations for what's going to happen in the meditation. Leave it open, leave it spontaneous in a way. Because for myself as well, sometimes I won't even reach the question, what am I, in the practice. Sometimes it's just enough to bring this alternate nostril breathing in, to bring my attention on the breath, and then to be calming the body. See, if we come to this question too quickly, and we're too much in the sense of mind and doership, and the mind is active, like the state that we might have after 3 or 4 cups of coffee, or for some people, after 1 cup of coffee, this very discursive mindset that wants to write lists and wants to be active. In this state, in this mind state, it's very difficult to come into a kind of seated meditation practice. There's other methods there available as well, but allow yourself some time in the beginning of the practice to become aware and to bring inner calmness. And generally speaking, when I'm guiding a meditation, if the meditation is an hour long, then I'll take a quarter of that time usually to enter into that inner calmness. And if it's half an hour long, then it will be a quarter of that, like 7 or 8 minutes or something, maybe even 10, to enter into that. And so we've entered into that calmness. And then we begin to ask ourselves this question, what am I? I sometimes say who, because this is the other way we can place the question. But this question of what actually even brings us out of like a personhood, because who am I kind of is is referring to like who am I as personality or whatever. But if I'm saying what am I don't even know if I am a who. I don't know if I'm a why. Like what is this? What is this being? So this being said, it's really important to to ask this question with intention, to ask this question, to ask yourself this question. You're not asking anybody else, obviously. So you ask yourself this question to the depths of your soul. What am I? What is this? What is beyond? And this question is referring to other questions which revolve kind of around it. What is beyond the mind? What is beyond the personality? What is beyond my name and gender and ancestry and country I live in? These are all characteristics, but we want the core of that being. What am I? And referring actually to the what. What is the I? And this is not really a philosophical question that we can debate, like we go to philosophy class and then the teacher asks, well, what am I? And then we put up our hand and we kind of try to answer these questions philosophically. Rather, we understand this question to be pointing to something which is realizable, which we can realize in our, could we call it experience? We could call it an experience-less state, because it doesn't involve the individuality in this understanding. And I'll be getting into that and what that means in a bit. At the same time, we're not asking this question like we might use it as a mantra or as some kind of a mechanical repetition. What am I? What am I? What am I? What am I? We're not going into it like this either. His question is a contemplation, and it's also not a contemplation with the mind, but with intuitive wisdom. And intuitive wisdom also doesn't mean that we ask this question and then we wait a little while and then we have some wonderful thoughts about what I might be. Like, I am Shiva, I am the ultimate universe, I am Shiva consciousness, I am Shakti, the mother of the universe, I am Archangel Michael, the defender of the Christian realm. We're not entering into any of these thoughts, because these are thoughts after all, and thoughts are contained with the mind. But we're trying to go beyond the mind, beyond all conceptual experience. And experience is conceptual. Anything that can be thought is not that aspect that we're considering. As we talked about previously, we did this meditation on neti, on not this, not that. And it follows and it stands to reason. If I'm not the body, and I am not the emotions, and I am not of course, my outward experience, like how a chair looks, or the sound of the fire, or the sound of thunderclouds, if I'm not these things, if I'm not that phenomenal experience, and I'm neither the body, the energy, the emotions, or the mind, then we ask ourselves, the next thing that happens in an understanding is actually, what am I? What am I? And it's interesting because the great contemporary non-dualist teacher we know as Adyashanti. Adyashanti was a Zen practitioner, and he practiced Zen for many years. And he would discuss with his teacher about his process and what was happening. And his teacher always gave him little pointers, but never really gave him much to go by, which is kind of like the course of action with some teachers, actually, that they let us go through our own process of awakening without much input, because after all, it's our it's our experience. And Adyashanti, the Zen practice that he was doing was staring at a white wall and staring at it for hours every day. And he was living kind of almost like a monk, because he was devoting so much of his life into that practice. And he spent so long sitting in front of that wall that eventually he came to understand. He came to this question on his own. He came to this question like, how can I stare at a black wall? How can I at a white wall? How can I contemplate what emptiness is if I don't even know who I am myself? And so this question, who am I, dawned upon him naturally. And then it unfolded in this very beautiful awakening process that of course, the awakening process had already started for him, but that questioning, which came to him naturally, reflected himself back to himself. And so this is what the spiritual teaching of India is showing us, these two realms. But I'll talk in the terms of Tantra. It's reflecting this question back to us to such a degree so that it's not like we're entering into a meditation. Let's say a very common yogic style of meditation, or also tantric, is staring at a candle flame. And we're staring at this candle flame, and it is something which is outside of you. And you are different from that. So you have the object of meditation, and then you have the subject. And the subject is you. I am staring at this candle flame. So in a lot of meditation styles, there's always this outward and inward experience. And of course, that outward experience, as we might know from Tantra and other traditions of the world, that's also a reflective experience. However, the question, what am I, or who am I, but what am I, is referring to the subject. So it's like the mind, and the mind does ask with the question, but with the question, we have to go into a feeling of questioning. And there's like this kind of, and we all know the kind of feeling that comes with questioning, and we're questioning our own existence, actually. Just like, as well, this practice kind of works to help us to stop the mind. So when we're in meditation and we ask this question, what am I? It has an ability to stop the mind. And the stopping of the mind, when we start to do this, and we enter into this again and again and again, we start to notice that this veil is lifting. And like in Zen practices, not particularly the one that Adyashanti was working with, but other Zen practices from Japan, they have these sayings called, or little poems called haikus. They're not really poems, but they're questions that we ask in order to help to break the mind. Like we know what the sound of two hands clapping, but what's the sound of one hand clapping? So it brings us to a point where we can't consider the answer with the mind, and we're not looking for an answer with the mind. This is usually when students would get hit, if the student tried to answer with the mind, one hand clapping, it's like this, right? It's like that. Then usually the Zen master in this tradition would usually hit the student on the shoulder, or maybe even clobber the student across the head to kind of break the mind. And of course, these are extreme methods, but they are out there in this tradition. And that, even those haikus, are something which is kind of outside of us. Whereas the question of what am I, it brings us back again and again, back into ourselves, back into the emptiness. So remember, this this practice helps to break the mind. So even if we're having tons of thoughts, but yet the body still seems calm, then ask this question, what am I? And contemplate it. Stay with it. Don't wait for some kind of fantastic answer to come, some kind of thought like, I am Vishnu, I am Krishna, I am the entire universe, or something really fun, really nice for the mind to contemplate. We're not going into this sort of thing. We're just going into this emptiness which comes after we say this question. And I might add as well that this question also, it doesn't necessarily always have to be like, what am I, or who am I? We can also ask other questions surrounding this question, like after a thought or a group of thoughts, we can ask ourselves the question, from where did these thoughts arise? Or like even you could pinpoint the exact thoughts, like you're in meditation and then suddenly you have this thought, I am thirsty. And then you pinpoint that and you ask, from where did the thirst arise? Or from where even did the feeling of the I which had the thirst arise? So you can actually also pinpoint it. But I'd like to stress as well that when we're doing a practice of what am I, we don't necessarily have to continue to ask this question. Like, I don't know, if you're a very linear person, which I tend to be, so I've learned how to steer away from this, but to ask yourself the question, what am I, every 5 inhales, or I don't know, every minute. I have a clock, and every minute I ask myself, what am I? It's not like this at all. We ask ourselves the question, what am I? Or any of those other questions surrounding it, whenever we notice ourselves drifting out of this presence, drifting away from the present moment, or away from actually the emptiness, away from this stillness and silence which comes after this question. And you'll notice that as you learn to immerse yourself more and more into this question, you'll notice that the time increases. In the beginning, yes, it's just momentary, but even that momentary aspect of emptiness, of stillness and silence, oh, it's such a joy. It's so beautiful. It frees the bonds that the limitations of the mind bring onto us just for that moment. And as we go into this more and more, we will realize that this this question and the stillness, the silence, especially the emptiness, lasts for us longer and longer and longer, until like it could come for you that it happens rather quickly, even that you might only have to ask the question, what am I, a few times during meditation, or only 10 times, or only 20 times, rather than maybe, I don't know, 60 times or more than that. So it's good here that we're vigilant and we're aware that we're not in presence, that we're not in that stillness, the silence, and most importantly, the emptiness. When that's happening, when we're not in that and we're lost in thoughts, but sometimes it can also be difficult because we identify so much with thoughts. So thoughts come, they form this story for you, this group of thoughts, and then you're away. And so it really comes back to how much are you on fire to know the truth about yourself. And the more that you're on fire, the more that you want to know, the better the concentration becomes. If you're if you've created some kind of a tapas for yourself, okay, I'm going to do 2 hours every day for 6 months. After a while, it will start to feel a little mechanical because because we really need to be on fire with this, and not just, of course, a daily formal practice is really important, but allow yourself to ask this question as well when you're just sitting drinking some tea, or when you're waiting for the bus, or you're waiting for something or someone. You're waiting for your food to cook, a very good one, because food is brings us into the body a lot, into mind and all the rest. Even ask yourself this question uh, in between bites of your food, or if you're watching TV, nothing wrong with TV. Ask yourself, when a commercial comes on, press the mute button instead of maybe going to your phone and scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, and press the mute button on your TV, and then just sit there in this presence, asking, what am I? And go into it like this. Have a kind of, allow yourself this spontaneity to come, and then to rest in silence, to rest in this emptiness which comes after this question. So, my friends, I hope I've made this clear as to how we can go deeply into this practice. Please feel free to ask any questions that are needed, and we'll be happy to answer them. And good luck on this. Namaste.